They need to believe that if they were to win the Premier League title, it need not necessarily be true, but this win sort of gives them that belief and allows them to go forward.
The game, at the end of it, emotionally, this was a very good win. For the psyche, it was a very good win. For the morale, it was a very good win. But just looking at it tactically, again, you're not going to be that happy about it, about the whole performance per
Yeah.
se. It's not about McTominay working for Manchester United system over Mason Mount. It's about Manchester United already having a Bruno Fernandes negating the requirement of Mason Mount.
I think it's clear that Arteta wants Raya to be his number one. And I think even just going back to the staff that they have around, the previous Brentford goalkeeping coach is now Arsenal's injured.
Alexander Isak, I think, fantastic player. The only player presently I would say Newcastle have that is, I mean, just saying, as in an individual quality, he's probably top notch, super elite.
Was really good in the situation, bringing young players up. And I think the fact that he gave Cole Palmer penalty taking responsibilities was also quite striking for me.
They're just giving, they don't want to run the club, so they don't want to be blamed for the problems in the club, but they still want to have the money and invested in. Hello. Welcome to the Global Footballer Podcast. I'm Monish and with me is Deepak. Today we discuss the last week's Premier League games and let's start with the big one, Deepak. Arsenal versus Manchester City. Supposed to be a big game, Clash of the Titans, probably one of the deciding games of the Premier League season. But what did you think about the game first? How interesting was it? And let's just start. What do you think?
Yeah, we are a bit late in discussing this, but better late than never, to be honest. And as you said, it was one of the defining games of the season. Uh, Arsenal won it, and I think this makes me feel a bit better about my pick for Arsenal to win the Premier League title. I think it was very important for Arsenal to win it, to give themselves that belief, give their fans that belief, and give their players that belief that they can actually go out and win against Man City. I think last 12 games they've lost, I think, against Manchester City, and
Yes, they
this
have.
was this is something that they really needed to get under their belt to prove it to themselves. They're better than Man City, at least in their head. They need to believe that if they were to win the Premier League title, it need not necessarily be true, but this win sort of gives them that belief and allows them to go forward. The game I thought was extremely boring. If I can be completely honest, I did fall asleep on my sofa a couple of times watching that game because it was literally both the managers setting out their teams to in a very advanced manner, trying not to lose primarily, I felt. And that sort of, pettered back and forth until Martinelli's deflected shot went in. What did you make of it, Manish?
Yeah, I was quite disappointed. I probably expected that Guardiola, as I told you last week, that Guardiola would try to defend and maybe try a route one with Haaland because there was no other way of trying to beat the Arsenal defense, especially with the players that he had at his disposal. With Rodri not being there, with Kevin De Bruyne not being there, he really was hampered in terms of his creative ability and the fact that there was no defensive fulcrum for him to be confident enough to push his players forward. But more importantly, Arsenal, I thought, should have been a bit more adventurous, which they were not. However, they managed to negate City, and let me tell you that they did a wonderful job in defending against Haaland and defending against City. That was a masterclass. But in terms of trying to get goals, yes, they were a bit hampered. Probably there was no Saka, so that affected them. However, bringing coming back of the return of Martinelli is going to be really good for them, and the fact that I think that the goal was it was fortunate, but this game could have been 0-0 or 1-0 either side. There was only those were the only possible ways this could have ended up, and I think kudos to Arsenal because they got a win, well deserved, and they kind of stamped the authority, and now they are going to be the team to beat this season.
Yeah, I agree with that. You're very right in saying Arsenal's defensive performance was very impressive. Saliba, my God, he looks like the definition of a Rolls-Royce defender. He is so good, and it's scary that he's so young. He only can get better from here, and it's quite scary to think how good he can be, especially that one shoulder barge on Haaland when he was sort of The typical making the typical Haaland run, accelerating from his own half, and then trying to get ahead onto a through ball. Saliba just bodied him off, and that was incredible to see. I don't think Haaland has had that from anybody else in the league so far. And yeah, Arsenal defended tremendously well, and I think
Uh,
they got the
do you
rewards.
think Kovacic should have been on the pitch? Because
No, I think it was a red card. Even if that was a borderline orange, he should have been sent off for the tackle right after that.
yeah,
100%.
exactly. So the first tackle was red. I mean, I've seen uh, softer tackles being given red this season. All right, they gave yellow, but then the next tackle wasn't even called. So Kovacic was lucky
Exactly.
there.
This
Anyway,
brings me back to
that's
the remember when we discussed Alexander Arnold, two tackles in very quick succession against Newcastle United. He was lucky to not be sent off. And it reminded me of that two tackles in very quick succession. He got a yellow for the first one. The second one was quite quick after that. I don't know whether it played into referee psyche, but he should have
but with
clearly been sent off.
Alexander Arnold, probably the first was it a tackle? Was it time wasting? I think wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was throwing the
Yeah,
ball away or something.
so the first one was a softer one. Like, come to think of it, this was a
Yeah,
completely different scenario. This was two very bad tackles, both of them red card worthy by themselves. So I mean, he was lucky to stay on the pitch, honestly. Anyways,
100%.
moving on to the next game, wearing the colors
Yes,
proudly.
regarding that one more question, Manish, who do
Yeah,
you think was a bigger miss for the teams? Was it Saka for Arsenal or Rodri and De Bruyne for Man City?
I mean, looking at the results, obviously you would say Rodri and De Bruyne, but Arsenal also needs Saka back really soon because I think they have some big games coming up. They're playing Chelsea, who look on the ascendant. So I think it has to be. I mean, both the teams were missing their players massively, and they really need
Hmm.
them back. Let's move on to the next game, Deepak.
Sure.
I'm
So,
just waiting to move on to the next game. So Manchester
yeah,
United,
you're wearing your Manchester United jersey, ready for
yeah.
it. Fergie time is back again at Old Trafford by the looks of it.
Yeah, I mean, see, the game, at the end of it, emotionally, this was a very good win. For the psyche, it was a very good win. For the morale, it was a very good win. But just looking at it tactically, again, you're not going to be that happy about it, about the whole performance per
Yeah,
se.
yeah.
But first, let's just dwell on the positives. McTominay came in, the last throw of the dice. He has been doing it for Scotland and two well taken goals. I mean, pushed forward. Garnacho was fantastic in the dying minutes. United kept trying for it. They kept pushing men forward, and it looked like there was this feeling. Like I kept mentioning that I think there was a previous game earlier in the season when they lost when they weren't even trying in the last moments. I think it was Brighton or someone. But
Hmm.
this game, the difference was they were trying. They looked like they were hungry for the win at least. So that was
Hmm.
the first positive. That's what I would take from it. And the fact
Can
that
I
they
just
got two
ask you,
goals,
is McTominay a better player for Manchester United, Manchester United system than Mason Mount?
I think everybody's better than. Yeah, that's what. Coming to that, it's not about McTominay working for Manchester United system over Mason Mount. It's about Manchester United already having a Bruno Fernandes negating the requirement of Mason Mount. Mason Mount makes those runs, but people know that he's not that big of a threat. So I've noticed now the defenders are not even shadowing him. All right, he makes those extra runs. McTominay, quality wise, Mason Mount is much more mobile. His positioning is not very bad. He gives them the 1-2 passes. His passing, I have not really seen great passes this season. And the only game he played well was the Carabao Cup game, the one against Crystal Palace that Manchester United won. So overall, the only time I saw Mason Mount shine was when Bruno Fernandes was not on the pitch. But considering everything else that happened, McTominay did play well this game. He was the right person to bring in, and he scored those all important goals, two goals for that matter. Uh,
Yeah.
what I wanted to, I mean, I might be taking a little more time here. I was quite appalled by Casemiro's performance. I've been, he's been scoring goals because he's making those runs. I do not know if the Manchester United want him or the manager Erik Ten Hag want him to make those runs into the 6 yard box. But pushing him forward, expecting him to come back and again defend is a big ask. All right.
Yeah, especially at his age, I guess.
At his age, and
Uh,
he's not looking off it. He's looking really tired this season. So I don't think they should
yeah,
expect that from him. So he's getting those goals and he's also leaking goals. Uh,
yeah.
the goal that United conceded was his fault. Essentially, he gave the ball away. and then he
Yeah.
tried a last ditch tackle which he missed. Now, I support Brazil. He did something similar in the World Cup. I mean, the ball was passed to Fred, who lost the ball. Tried to bring Modric down physically, giving a bad foul. What at the end happened there was he was played out of that particular, when they countered, he could not run back because he was played out of that with Modric releasing the ball. Also, the fact that he did not stop that particular attack. And that's what he did here. He
Mm.
tried for a bad tackle and he didn't stop the attack. You neither stop the attack and then you're played out of that particular gameplay that's happening. So that was a bad decision on his end. Onana should have saved that. It looked like he was going to stop it, and then he realized if he stopped the ball, he would palm it out to a Brentford player. So then he tried to pull it back, and I think there's a lot going on in his head. He's not in the greatest headspace, and I think Damir is there waiting in those wings. So I think United is going to stick to Onana still for now. His passing was better. He's picking up Holland now better with those passes. Uh, that's it for United. And one more
Yeah.
thing,
I think
Rashford's
just on Manchester
performance.
United, I think it was quite refreshing to see, as you said, towards the end of the game, that your team's believing that you can still get some points and
Uh,
trying to,
and this was
nick the
yeah
game.
and this was
Uh,
after getting in the more importantly after changing a few players. Rashford was
yeah,
not running back. He was trying to create chances, but he was not pressing the players. Like you kept mentioning that United don't press, so Rashford was not pressing the players. His performance, he is the most talented player on the pitch whenever he's on the pitch, all right, him and Bruno. But Bruno, when he's not been playing well this last few games, but he still gives his 100%. He still runs behind. He still tries to win the ball. So when Rashford put, his body language was quite bad. And after bringing Anthony and Garnacho in, United started attacking on the wings and bringing in the crosses, and that changed a lot in the game, if you
yeah.
noticed.
I think
Anyway,
also the goalkeepers were extremely suboptimal in this game. I think if the
yes,
goalkeepers had been quite good, it would have finished a nil-nil, perhaps.
or 1-0.
All three of the goals were goalkeeper mistakes, in my
I, I, I
opinion.
I think the last goal was, yeah,
The last goal should have been saved. He read that.
could
So
have been
so
saved.
if you are a goalkeeper of a Premier League caliber, most goalkeepers after the Maguire header comes in, um, they come forward expecting
Yeah.
that Maguire's header is coming towards the goal, so they come and claim it. He just stood rooted to
No,
his line,
Yeah,
so
I'm not sure
you're
of,
not gonna.
yeah, I'm not sure if he would
And
have won
Onana's
it.
was a clear mistake, horrible
Onana's was a
mistake.
mistake, and the first one was
Um,
palmed back. So
and
yeah,
the first one, Strakosha again palm back. Strakosha was playing only because Flecken was injured, and I think the even second goal choice was injured. So perhaps he's unlikely to get another game in the league anytime soon. Um, Onana is worrying. I think his form is extremely troubling, just given the amount of money that he's been paid. He honestly, if I can say, he resembles Fabian Barthez for me.
um,
Extremely loud, extremely agitated, very animated, but not the greatest of keepers that you can have
Barthez
in
was
between
good
the
at
sticks.
saving penalties, though. If you
Yeah,
remember
Barthez, I think
in the
short
Euros
stopping he
and the
was
World
really
Cup,
good, to be honest. He doesn't even
yeah,
seem to have that level of short stopping, but his passing actually is quite impressive.
it is very
So his
impressive,
But
actually.
the thing is, I read somewhere somebody saying if it was for passing that you bring a goalkeeper and you could have just played Ericsson in goal. He's the best passer on the pitch. He would play long
True.
balls as much as you like.
No, the thing is,
Um,
so Onana basically, I mean, I don't think they expect him to be a Allison level goalkeeper in terms of shot stopping and claiming the balls and all of that. But at
mm,
least, I'm not saying Ederson, but somewhere close to that. Because if the passing is that good, if you're that good on the ball and you rely on that, like Ederson per se, you know he's not the best shot stopper.
yeah, but
He's
Ederson is not bad. He's not an excellent shot
exactly,
stopper, but he's not.
exactly.
He doesn't
He's
do
about
blunders most of the
he's
time.
most, but he does sometimes, but not most of the time. So
Yeah,
basically, Onana just has to aim for that level. You don't expect him to be a fantastic shot stopper like David De Gea, but somewhere at a mediocre level, something like. So let's go. Importantly, Brentford got Flecken as the goalkeeper, and that's after they sold David Raya to Arsenal.
David Raya.
So let's discuss about that, Deepak. We didn't mention
Yeah,
David
sure.
Raya versus Ramsdale. Who do you think should have been? What do you think about the whole situation?
I think it's clear that Arteta wants Raya to be his number one. And I think even just going back to the staff that they have around, the previous Brentford goalkeeping coach is now Arsenal's. goalkeeping coach, and I'm sure there is a lot of history that he has brought in from Brentford, and I'm sure he has told Arteta all about David Raya. And just in pure numbers, Raya was excellent last season. He was better than Ramsdale on just pure numbers. So I don't think it is, people getting so hysterical about Ramsdale being chucked out of the team. It happens. It happens all the time.
The
Even when in Man City, I remember, I don't know whether you remember, but when
Joe
Joe
Hart
Hart came in, yeah, Joe Hart was sort of
pushed out.
untouchable at that point. He was pushed out, and I think it was Claudio Bravo, was it, or somebody
Bravo
else?
was the one brought in first, I think.
Yeah,
And then they even played the third choice keeper over him. It was the I forgot his name. He was the Chelsea third choice keeper.
right.
Uh, they anyway. So that's basically. So basically, what happens is Ramsdale when he came in, again they bought in Ramsdale when they already had Leno, and everyone asked why you getting spending so much money. There were a lot of questions asked. If you remember when
Yeah,
Ramsdale came
yeah,
in,
definitely. And
by the
Leno got
Arsenal
sidelined.
fans. Yeah, why are you paying 25-30 million for a goalkeeper who you want to keep on the bench? And then after some time, you notice that okay, he was playing, and then he had a fantastic first game, and the fans loved him.
Yep.
Uh, I think it's
Right.
important not to always listen to the fans,
Yeah, I
uh,
agree. I think
especially big
Raya
club
found
fans.
himself. Yeah, sure. I think Raya found himself a bit,
Hmm.
found it a bit difficult to cope with the environment and the nature of the big game against Man
City.
City. That first step, especially, he was very troubled. He flapped a lot. He made a few mistakes. He was lucky to not concede that goal against Alvarez when he was closed down. But
Yep.
the mark of a good keeper is he didn't get faced, and the second half he came out and continued to do that and did it quite well actually, and ended up closing out a clean sheet. So um, perhaps he is getting whatever, and his passing actually was really good. He found Jesus on that right wing unmarked, and it was incredible passing that he did on a few occasions when he had the time. So perhaps Arteta can see what he wants to do in the long term.
Do you think that so Raya's stats per se, he has more forward passes? In fact, 70% of his passes, 50 or 60% plus of his passes were forward passes last season. But then again, he was playing for Brentford, and as people mentioned, you can't just rely on stats because Brentford had Tony, and you give anything up there, he's just gonna muscle out and take that ball in.
Yeah.
I mean, he's an old school target man, so that also mattered, and that was the style of play that Brentford had. They were pushing the ball
That
in
Brentford
front.
had, yeah. Also, I
Yeah,
have never understood that. I know the statistic about forward passes for goalkeepers, but I've never understood how that passing stat is relevant for goalkeepers, because forward pass goalkeepers usually always pass forward anyway.
yeah, exactly.
But
No,
I've
I was wondering how now Ramsdale has less than 50% forward passes. So I'm trying to figure out where else is he passing the ball.
exactly, yeah. So you can't pass it backward because then you're going to score an own goal.
Yeah, like are you
So
serious? He's passing it sideways, or maybe is there like a 3 meter or 6 meter barrier?
rule for
Over,
a forward pass.
yeah. I'm not
Or
sure how they pick it up. We really
not
need
entirely
to.
sure. Yeah. But
Yeah.
that forward pass statistic for a goalkeeper has always made me chuckle. Anyway, let's go on to the
So
other game, Monish.
Newcastle
Newcastle
United
United 2
2,
and
West
West
Ham
Ham
2.
United 2. Yeah, I think Isaac, first of all, was very unlucky to not get a hat trick. He was really good. And Newcastle had really bad first half. I think we were still a bit hungover after that PSG result. And Eddie Howe does this. He changes things at halftime. And he sort of started pushing again from the front, which the players didn't seem to have the energy to do in the first half. They found that energy somehow, I think, realized there's a 2 week break coming up after this. And the second half was far better. I was quite sad that we conceded a late goal to draw the game. I think Isaac should have, if he had scored that, we would have won 3-1 or 3-2 at best. But yeah, it wasn't to be. And yeah, overall, not a bad point, if I'm being honest. West Ham are in great
West
form themselves.
Exactly. It
And
would it wasn't like you West Ham didn't deserve the point per se,
yeah,
because they played a good game as well, especially in the first half, and well taken goal. The first one, your goalkeeper was at fault, I think, for the first goal. What do you
yeah,
think? What
Nick Pope.
happened there?
I think
Nick
even
Pope came
Lascelles
out too
was at
early.
fault, and Nick Pope also.
Both were
Nick
at
Pope has
fault.
been asked to do sweeper keeper jobs. Um, his pace isn't the greatest, but he he sort of takes up a position which is very high up so that he can clean up. But in this sort of situation, when the defender is not tracking back and Pope is slow, it ends up being in no
No,
man's land and they get a
it
free
was
tap in.
it was more like it's not about him running out. It was the angle at which he ran out. He was
Yeah,
not covering everything, and I mean,
yeah.
anyway, but
Last
kudos
season
to
also there was a similar mistake from Nick Pope, if you remember that red card against
uh,
Liverpool just before the final
yeah.
against Manchester United. Because of that, he couldn't even come for the final. I mean, he couldn't appear for the final. But yeah, Nick Pope does this sometimes, but I think he's being made to play this way just to cover in the back and sweep in the back. Lascelles
Mm,
obviously is not our first choice centre back.
Going
Botman
to
is injured.
yeah, Alexander Isaac, I think fantastic player. The only player presently I would say Newcastle have that is, I mean, just saying, as in an individual quality, he's probably top notch, super elite. He can reach. I think Barcelona also. He was linked to Barcelona, wasn't he?
No, Real Madrid. So
Real
Real Madrid
Madrid. All
really
right. Sorry.
wanted him, sort of fixed a deal for him just before he went to Dortmund when he and then he came
No,
from
it is not then. I'm talking about now. There were some murmurs about Barcelona being interested in him.
Barcelona's linked to
I
every
know,
player on the
yeah.
planet in
No,
that
this
case.
this
But
was yeah, I know, but I mean there were some murmurs that they were looking at him per se. Anyway, but what I'm saying is Alexander Isaac, fantastic hold up play, fantastic link up play. I saw a couple of places where he managed to keep the ball under pressure. He's a really good player and he's only going to get better. He's what,
yeah, he's
23, isn't
23,
it?
same age as
Yeah,
Haaland, and he's
yeah.
yeah, it's scary how good he can be. Sort of, he's two-footed. He takes everything with left foot, right foot. He has the tricks. He has the dribbling. He has the pace. He has the height, 6'4". Although it doesn't seem 6'4" compared to Haaland, who's 6'4", 6'5"
The
again.
physicality, maybe he doesn't. I mean, he's
Yeah,
strong,
perhaps
but
he's
not
quite
nothing.
thin. Yes.
He's not like Haaland or Holland for that matter when it comes to
Yeah.
physicality. Do you feel that you lost out on Kudus? Because I mean, he was
Yeah,
someone that
definitely.
Newcastle were
Yeah.
after, and what a player.
I think he would have been, honestly, we've discussed this before, but I think he would have been an upgrade on Almiron in my books.
Definitely.
Not that I want to sell Almiron, but just as an
No,
upgrade, he seems so much of a better player. He has that, uh, flair about him, which is not something that you
which
get
you
every
need in
day.
a team, honestly, which you definitely
Yeah,
need in
and
a team.
he has the work rate also, which I feel is quite important in this Eddie Howe team, to have that work rate with the flair. And even the second goal, I think Nick Pope perhaps should have saved that, if I'm being completely honest. It did come through a lot of bodies, but he did have it was hit from outside the
Uh,
box. I don't know.
Anyway, so but it's fine, yeah. So, but
Perhaps
anyway,
I'm
so
being harsh, but
Newcastle finally being harsh on Newcastle. That's a good job, good one, Deepak. So, moving on, talking about interesting, strong, attacking wingers with a lot of flair. Sterling's performance for Chelsea. Chelsea
yeah,
really bossed the game and came back from one goal down, beat Burnley.
yeah.
What do you think,
Funny when I
Deepak?
was watching that match, Chelsea had a lot of chances, and then Burnley hit their goal, and I'm like, okay, here we go again, same old Chelsea, just not finishing their chances and then getting hit on the counter and losing another match. But to their credit, they came back. They came back
I mean,
strong. They
the
came back
first goal
hard.
was an own goal, but yeah, they did come back and they played really good football.
Yeah,
Um,
Sterling was always so difficult to deal with. I think Burnley did not really have much answers for him. He was playing so well. It just seemed like Sterling of the old. And he was
exactly.
playing on the left wing, wasn't he, rather than the right
He
wing, where
was
he's
playing on the
done
left
so well
S-
for
s-
Chelsea.
at the beginning. Yes, but what I'm trying to say, so Sterling normally does. If you remember, he scores. He plays well for 4 5 games and then is a bit off for 4 5 games. When he's off, like he played really well at the beginning, first 2 3 games of the season, and Chelsea were flying, and then he wasn't playing that well, and then Chelsea was struggling. Chelsea really needs somebody else in there trying, able to control the game and probably finish a few goals. Uh, to Chelsea's credit, this game even Jackson scored a goal, and
Yeah,
Cole
Jackson's
Palmer.
goal was actually quite well
It was
taken,
very
in
well
my.
taken. He looked very calm when he was taking that shot.
Yeah,
For a
perhaps
change,
the 3-1 up made it a bit easier for him to take that
yes,
goal. There wasn't
exactly.
that enough pressure that he had to score and win the game for Chelsea. So perhaps. And I
Only
think he
time will.
scored recently, I guess, in the FA Cup as well, didn't
Yes,
he?
he
Or
did,
the
and
Carabao Cup.
Carabao Cup, and only time will tell if Jackson is another Timo Werner or he's. I think he's going to come good. Honestly, you know the prediction that you had about Chelsea finishing third, I still wouldn't. I mean, not third, but they still have a chance considering they have the firepower and the players to end up in the top four. Uh,
Yeah, and the manager too. I think Pochettino
yeah,
is really good in this situation, bringing young players up. And I think the fact that he gave Cole Palmer penalty taking responsibilities was also quite striking for me, because
yes.
Palmer's just been at the club for a few weeks now, and he's already been given that opportunity to take a penalty over players like Sterling, players like even Nicholas Jackson, you would have expected to be the players to take that penalty. So Pochettino has no qualms in letting young players take responsibility, and I think that works very well for this Chelsea team. And you're right, perhaps they might have a good season after all if they manage to actually find their scoring boots.
They're going to have some big games coming up, as I mentioned, and I think this next month is going to be pivotal in trying to figure out where Chelsea is going to end this season. They're going to be eventually good. There's no doubt about that. They have a lot of talent in that team, but where they end up this season is going to be decided in this particular month, I think.
Yep.
So Deepak, any one more thing? What about what about? I mean, just to bring some light, because you follow Newcastle United on the gambling allegations in Italy. I mean, Tonali is also. I mean, Tonali's
Yeah.
name has come up. So yeah, what
Yeah,
do you think about
quite
that?
troubling, quite troubling to be honest. Tonali was our big name signing this summer. We have not made any sort of mistakes in the transfer window since the takeover. And it is quite troubling. And he is a vital part of that Newcastle midfield. I think he started off really good, then had a small lull, and he's now coming into his own where he's playing pretty much every game, and sort of getting that connection with Bruno. Um, there's not much about this gambling allegation out there. There are differing stories saying it's for gambling allegations outside of football in terms of poker and so on and so forth. There's also some other stories saying they actually did do a lot of betting on football matches, but they weren't betting
So
on matches that they represented themselves in. They were betting on matches for other teams or other players. But then there is also some unverified report saying they did do some betting on matches they featured in. So I'm not entirely sure which version is correct, and the authorities have
you,
not said anything.
who are the other players who are involved?
And Nick
Uh,
Zaniolo from Aston Villa,
yeah, and
and I think I'm not sure who the third person is. There's another
uh,
third
he was the first one,
player as well.
actually. He's still in Italy. I forgot his name too. So his name came up first. It started, I think, it started with him because I think the so-called Italian, one of the notorious paparazzo in Italy, because
Hmm.
he has also been known to blackmail players and he was in jail and all of that. He's the one who outed him first, saying that there are issues here and he's been gambling. And their
Hmm.
names came much later when the investigation picked up a lot of pace. When
Right.
they started, so basically, it betting is allowed, but what first came out was they were Zaniolo and Tonali were using illegal
I
sites,
think
sites that were not.
I've just seen it's. I think Juventus Fagioli,
Yeah,
who's
Fagioli,
the
yes,
third person
yes,
who
he's
plays for
plays for
Juventus. So,
Juventus. So Tonali, anyway, all of them were Italy based at that time. Tonali
yeah,
and Zaniolo were using this particular illegal betting site. That's what the news is. Anyway, more news will come in later, and we have to see what happens there.
the only reassuring thing for me uh, is Ivan Tony's charges seem a lot worse than what even Tonali's is being built up as. So if Ivan Tony, I think, had 300 betting regulations, and many of them were for his own
It's
matches. But so if he got like an 8 month ban, I'm hoping it will be slightly lesser than that for Tonali
I
at
think
worst.
the more concerning thing will be the criminal charges in Italy rather than the ban from the FA.
Sporting charges, yeah.
Yeah, I think because it was a 3 month sentence. I don't know if it's suspended sentence or whatever it is. Anyways, uh, we'll just follow that and see what happens from that end. That's it,
Yeah,
Deepak.
and Manchester United, Munish. Exciting news coming in that Sir Jim Ratcliffe is going to be 25% owner.
Possibly. So there's
I
still,
don't think it's
I
very
mean,
exciting, but tell me what your
no.
views are on it.
I'll just wait on it. I think I'll tell you my there's a board meeting supposedly on Thursday, and that's when they completely decide on it, and only then they'll ratify that particular deal. So I'll just wait
Do you
on what
want
is
him
going to
as a
happen.
part owner, or are you one of the fans who want a 100% sale immediately?
Honestly, I never believed that Glazers would sell. I'm one of those fans. I had
Right.
lost all hope that Glazers would sell.
So this you feel
The
is more of
only
a realistic step towards Glazers eventually going out.
No, I mean they'll still want to make more money off it, and that's what they're doing basically. They're just giving they don't want to run the club, so they don't want to be blamed for the problems in the club, but they still want to have the money in invested
Yeah.
in, and that's what we are looking at. Uh,
I think this
Jim,
sort of just 25% sale sort of covers what they paid for the club, right? Previously.
yeah, they not didn't even pay 25. I think they leveraged it with less than that. I
This
don't
was, I
remember
think,
exactly.
1.5 billion. They didn't
Yeah,
pay 1.5 billion when
they
they
paid
took
300
over.
or something, $300 million or something
Yeah,
of
and
that
then they
sort.
leveraged the rest of the fee anyway. So I think this has been a tidy profit for them, just selling 25%. But yeah, I don't know whether owning
Uh,
25% of the club will give him sort of rights
No,
to
the
make
the the
changes.
the news is it is 25% and operational control. Now that's why I don't want to delve on into that because the final news has
We'll
not
know
come out
once
yet.
it's out. Yeah.
Yes, and once the official news is out, I only then I would react on it because there seem to be so many conflicting reports on this. And there
Yeah.
was the sale was on, then the sale was off. I think Gary Neville was talking about how they're not going to sell. Then I think Beckham was probably hinting that maybe the sale is on. Honestly,
Hmm.
I stopped bothering too much about it. I I'm
I
just
think there is
waiting.
a lot of Manchester United fans who are very much against the Glazers selling anything less than 100% of the club. I think they want the
Yeah,
Glazers to sell 100%. But
personally,
as you
I
say,
would
probably
prefer
that's
that.
not a
Personally,
realistic view, perhaps, though,
no,
right?
personally, I would prefer that they are out completely. There's no
Yeah,
doubt about that. I would prefer that, but uh, I'm not really totally emotionally invested in it. If you notice, a lot of people are getting hysterical on Twitter,
yeah, exactly.
on
Yeah.
various forums. But uh, I mean, a few, at least a few that I know also were not. They were not very confident that Glazers would sell. So I mean, I don't think it's going to change much because the fact is. I think already with Richard Arnold, I think it's already better management than it was for the last few years. So we are already going in the correct direction per se. It's not we are still not where we are supposed to be, but there's some improvement on the whole. That's what I believe. So let's see how things go.
Okay.
Anyway, so that's it for today, and thank you.
Thank you for listening, everybody. Like, share, and subscribe, and see you the next time. Bye bye.